This is a honey locust tree. It's not a fruit tree. I was trying to do the permaculture thing with planting the honey locust, and they just don't do well. This is another Norland tree. So I have 3 of them. This is the second one. I expect that this tree will perform just fine. I have them at my father's cabin too, and they do great. So, well, there's probably mice in here. This is a Macintosh. This tree may die, and the reason is I saw it leaning this year, so I stead it back up again, and I think they attack the roots really good on this one. So this tree may not survive. It may end up being like that frostbite I had before. What I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to dig, when I plant in this area here again, I'm going to dig down and I'm going to put a wire mesh around, like maybe 3 or 4 inches down in the soil, and then have it stand up like 6 or 7 inches high. And then I'm going to still put this white thing around it, because I think this area in here, the voles are living around here pretty prevalently. And this tree also is another Macintosh, and it also got hit with the voles, but I don't think quite as bad. But maybe, I mean, like I'm standing the tree up trying to get the tree to stand straight. It might die as well. Might lost 2 Macintoshes this year. This was a Wolf River, it's dead. This is a Cortland, and it looks good. This is another Cortland, and it looks okay. Deer got to it, but it should be all right. This is dead, another Wolf River that died a couple years ago. Haven't taken it out. This is a Macintosh. It didn't get hit with the roots, they're fine. So it should be all right this year. This is a Honeycrisp. The deer got to the lower spot, but they didn't go all the way around. It should be all right. This is another Honeycrisp, and it also looks fine for this next year. This is a Herald. No, this is a Sun Sweet, or Snow Sweet, pardon me. Now, the funny thing is I got this apple tree and a Herald Red at the same time. Snow Sweet and Herald Red. They're both red apples, but when you cut them open and you leave them on the counter for about 30 seconds, this one will remain white on the inside. The Herald Red, on the other hand, which I'll show you in a moment, that tree will turn brown. Not the tree, the fruit will turn brown. It tastes, it's like they're both crisp. It's just that one has, like, I guess you're breaking some cells and causing it to brown quicker or something. I read about it, but it doesn't really affect anything except for the look of the apple. So this is a Snow Sweet. It looks good this year. Buds on it. This is dead. You can see the voles did this a couple years ago. I have really a lot of vole problems. This is a Williams Pride, and it's a standard rootstock. This tree will not produce, or shouldn't produce, for a long time, but it should be a vigorous grower. And the thing about the rootstocks is it should put the roots down deeper and get through this clay. Below the clay level is regular soil, like it's about 2 feet down. So if the trees can get below that, then they'll be in great shape. This is a wine sap tree. Deer got to it. It's done okay. I don't know much about wine sap, but it's done okay. And this is another wine sap right here. This is the Herald Red I was talking about earlier. it should put out leaves. This is a wealthy apple right here. Looks good. This is a zestar right here. This is, I have a couple of these little shrubs. This is a silverberry. So not silver buffalo berry, but silverberry. It's a berry bush that's I guess native to my area is what I want to say. This is a Lodi apple tree. My neighbor told me don't plant this. He had one. He has one, I guess, and he says they're pithy apples. He doesn't like them. They're yellow. But it's a good growing tree, or at least it has been so far. This is my third Norland apple tree. And then the last two, this one here, this apple, and this one here are Johnson apples, which I read about them, and they're an older variety, and they're supposed to be one of the most susceptible to diseases. Although I'm going to bring out my disease sheet and talk about all my apple trees in the future, and just kind of let you know that I've got a lot of disease-prone varieties in this orchard. And I have some that are disease-resistant, and I'm trying to plant more that are disease-resistant. But essentially 3 rows of apple trees. I think I have 27 trees right now. Some of them I've marked off as dead. I'm replacing the ones that are dead with some other varieties, and I'm taking some more preventive measures against the voles. This row right here is Asian plums, and you notice that I didn't come all the way up here with them. That's because I want this like triangular zone here in the future to be free, so that I can put maybe a little shed or something for work tools or whatever. These 2 rows here are cherry trees. They actually merge into 1 row up here, and I plan on planting more of the Asian pears if I can get them to work in this area along here. And then this last row is European plums, or European pears, and then there's like another small little row in the back there. And that's that's the layout of this particular orchard. What could potentially happen is I may have to forget about cherry trees. I'm planting some more this year, but I may just have to forget about them because the soil is probably not the best for those trees in this environment. Asian plums, I'm not sure if I lose the cherry trees what I'll replace them with. The apple trees seem to be doing okay, not great, not fantastic, but okay. Now I want to talk about one last tree, and then we'll end the video. Ready to go, Scam? You want to come out? Yeah. You can come out of the orchard now. Lock it up. Okay. The last tree that we're going to talk about. Good boy, Scam. And that is this tree here. This is actually trees I originally planted a long time ago, and I'm trying to take out the remnants of them. This is a Honeycrisp tree, and it's kind of an interesting story on this tree. I planted it. It's probably one of my first trees I planted. Look at it. It doesn't look vigorous. It's not like it hasn't grown a ton. I'm not sure what rootstock it's on. Okay. The other trees in this orchard here, I have watered. Like I've used sprinklers on them and watered the trees individually, because in August it gets really dry here. Like there's no rain to speak of. and maybe even the second half of July. Just depends on the year as to when I start to put water on the trees. Watering in heavy clay is tricky because on one hand you don't want it completely dried out. On the other hand, you don't want to flood your trees, you know, if you don't have good drainage. My drainage, even though it's heavy clay, doesn't seem to be too horrible, but still, it's like this happy medium between the two. If you can water it just right, then the water won't be wasted because heavy clay retains water really well, so it'll go through the soil, and the trees, if they've got their roots in the right places, they'll probably pick up that water when they need it, and it won't just drain right through like it would with gravel or silt or sand or something. So heavy clay is mostly bad, but it's not entirely bad. There's like some good aspects of it. But this tree, I've never really, I wouldn't say never. I think I watered it once or twice last year. That's it. And it's done just fine. And what that tells me is, at least some trees, if I knew which ones, it'd be easier. I wouldn't have to water at all, or maybe once in the year, in the summer, maybe twice. But that's it. What that encourages is the trees that have, like that Williams Pride that I showed over there, it encourages trees that have a strong root system to go deep. And if they can get through that layer of heavy clay, then they can get into soil that they prefer and closer to the water table as well. And I think what will end up happening, and this seems to be the case, my experience anyway, is that if the tree will look stunted for quite a while, like 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden it'll hit where it needs to go, and it'll just grow. You know, I've seen that in a couple different instances. But it's just getting that tree to that point. So how do I know about the soil? Well, I dug those fence posts 4 feet into the ground for that gate. And so when I dug them, of course I'm using a fence post digger, or whatever you call it. It's just handheld, you know. I'll show it to you later because I have to dig in a couple more. But the first 12 inches, 10 to 12 inches was good soil because it's had this grass on it for a number of years, so there's some soil built up there. And then under that, for about 2 feet, is heavy clay. And when I got down, I don't know, about 18 inches or 20 inches or something from the surface, I ran into a layer of water in the clay. And so it wasn't just like regular clay, it was like the stuff that you find at the potting mill or whatever, you know, where your hands are just soaking wet. And that's what it was like. And it was like maybe an inch or two of that, and it was full of worms. So the worms were following the water down as it went through the soil. But it takes a long time, and I don't think it had rained for a number of, like, maybe a week or 2 or 3 weeks or something. So the water was taking its time going through the soil. That's a good thing in the sense that means when it rains or there's moisture, the trees are probably going to, or the vegetation are probably going to get as much as they can out of it. And then I got down to about 2.5 feet. So maybe it was 2 feet of clay and I don't know, 6 feet of soil, I don't remember. But I got down to about 2.5 to 3 feet, and I ran into good soil, clay, silt, sand, all kind of mixed together. And then of course I ended at 4 feet. So anyway, that's the story of that. And so I think if the root systems of these trees can get down below that level into the soil underneath the clay level, then they'll do just fine. But the thing is, dwarfs are probably going to not do that. So dwarf trees and maybe even semi-dwarfs are not going to do that, which means that I'm probably going to need to plant standard trees, which means that I probably won't have any production out of the apples for a number of years while I'm doing that. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on how that all is working for me. And I don't know that I will expand the orchard into this portion of the property. at this point, I'm probably good with the number of trees I'm going to have, but I can always expand it because I just have to remove those posts and put things out a little further. This is an American chestnut tree, and it's going to have some leaves coming out. It's struggled, and I bought 2 of them. This is an American chestnut tree. And the reason I bought 2 of them was because I read about the chestnut blight and the early 1900s wiping out like huge forests of chestnuts, American chestnuts. But the pioneers had taken some chestnuts to Michigan, I think. There's a grove there. And they also took them to Oregon. There's a grove there. And so they're trying to like bring some of the chestnuts back. And so I wanted to try to do my part in that and see if I could maybe get a couple American chestnuts. But they don't thrive here. I don't know the weather, the soil, I'm not sure why. But they're not thriving, they're surviving, they're growing very slowly. So we'll see how that all turns out with them. And then the last interesting tree I got, which is not a fruit tree. And I do have some American walnut trees down by the river that I planted, but I'll have to show those later. This is a yellowwood. It's from originally from the Kentucky region, and it's not like an endangered tree necessarily because of like anything bad. It's just kind of more rare because it's just very picky on the environment that it can grow in. So it hasn't been a very vigorous grower either. Really slow, but anyway, Kentucky, or pardon me, a yellowwood. So I've got plenty of other opportunities to grow trees if I needed to. You know, I could remove that old chicken coop there. I can plant along that fence line there. I can plant along my neighbor's fence here. I plan to, in fact. And then I've got some room next to here, and I actually have room next to those fence posts I could put some trees. So I could keep building out, but I'm probably going to slow down next year, and then every year will be just a few less trees every single year. But hopefully I can enjoy some of my fruits of my labor, as they say. Anyway, this is my mountain life, and I will be back in the future with some more discussions of fruit. Thank you very much for viewing.